There is no denying that the Edinburgh Fringe Festival is an expensive trip, especially if you're not from Edinburgh, just like me, with accommodation, travel, food, and show prices all adding up. But I have done it in under £1,300 and will share with you my top 11 tips and tricks on how you can do so as well. I'll also finish by telling you about some of my favourite shows and how much I spent in total. But first, what is the Edinburgh Fringe Festival? For 3 weeks in August, you can explore the best of the UK's creative arts performances by going to multiple shows a day and seeing street performances. So if you like comedy, theatre, music, dance, and cabaret, this is the festival for you. I went for 5 days. This is how I did it. My first tip is to not stay in Edinburgh because it is tourist season, so the accommodation prices are absolutely skyrocketing. Instead, we stayed in Glasgow in the Mercure City Hotel, which was only a 5-minute walk from the Queen Street station in Glasgow. And we can get a direct train, 50 minutes, all the way to Edinburgh, which was really, really easy. So for 2 people in that hotel, we spent £626. However, of course, this is subject to change every year. My next tip is with the trains. It is so much cheaper to get a season ticket than it is to pay for each train individually. This means you can get on any train between the two destinations at any time. So a season ticket on the Trainline app for a week is £100. However, for the month, it is £384. I was only at the Fringe for 5 days, but I still bought the season ticket for the week. That was cheaper than buying each train individually, and it made more sense to me as I didn't know what time I was getting on the train coming home every day or leaving every day. I did, however, hear that apparently ScotRail did their own Edinburgh Fringe discount, so it's best to check out their website as well. But regardless, the trains between Glasgow Queen Street Station and Edinburgh Waverley come every 30 minutes. If you happen to miss the last train of the night, this next tip is for you. A lot of shows are very, very late in the evening, through to like 2 a.m. some of them. It is crazy. So there may not be a train back for you to get. Instead, there's a bus that goes straight to Glasgow. It takes a little bit longer. It ranges between an hour and 10 and an hour and a half, but this option could be as cheap as £5 to get. It is definitely worth it. My sister and I, however, didn't book any really late shows, so the latest we got back to Glasgow was 1:30 in the morning, but it proves trains are still running through to 1 a.m. If you are staying in Glasgow and you fly there into the airport, get the 500 bus straight as you leave the airport because it's only £11 for a journey. It takes you straight into the city centre and it's a lot cheaper than spending 40 quid on a cab to wherever you are staying. So now it's time for the shows. I've spoken enough about the travel. I found that while I was booking shows on the Edinburgh Fringe website, it kept on glitching on me. So I had to research a show or book it and the app or the website would just crash. Instead, get the Edinburgh Fringe app. So much more easy to navigate. I was able to book and research shows really quickly, really easily. However, when you book a show, there is a £1.25 booking fee per show, but this stops once you reach £7.50. So I found it was a lot easier to just plan my whole trip first and book all the shows in one booking to save money because only £7.50 booking fee. The app is also really great for showing you your planner so you know what's going on each day, and there's a map which shows where each location is. So super easy to navigate. I managed to go to 17 shows in my 5 days, which meant I saw 3 or 4 shows, sometimes even 5 per day. This also left me with plenty of time to travel between the shows, get food, relax. There was so much time. However, the streets are packed. Obviously, it's tourist season. The streets are very, very busy. So walking to the shows might take you a little bit longer than it normally would on an average day. I spent £219.50 on all the shows in total, but they all have a varying price. Some are free, and then others can range between like £2.50 or 25 quid, maybe even more, but the average price for a show is £15. If you subscribe to the Times, this is your lucky, lucky day, because holders of the Times Plus subscriptions could get tickets to Fringe shows for free. You could access this deal via a link on the article that spoke all about the Edinburgh Fringe on the Times website. And once you logged in, there you have it. You can explore many fringe shows for free and save money. However, this might have just been a 2025 deal. I'm not too sure if they'll do it again next year, but it's best to check. You never know, and then you can have some shows for free. My next tip is all about the free shows. Now, it sounds so exciting. You get to see a show for free and you feel like you are saving money. However, the shows do still cost the comedians a lot of money to put on, especially for a whole month. And due to this, a lot of them ask you to pay what you can at the end or pay what you think the show is worth. Now, some comedians make this optional, so you don't have to pay if you don't want to. However, other comedians are waiting by the door with a card machine and a cash box waiting for you to pay. Now, as a student who obviously doesn't have a stable income, I felt very pressured to pay and I thought the show was free. So it took the aspect, in my opinion, the aspect of free away from free fringe. However, I do understand the comedians' reasonings for this because they are spending a lot of money. This is just a little warning that if you do book onto a lot of free shows, you might be paying on the day, just to let you know that could still happen to you. However, if you want to spend the day watching free acts, you should definitely head over to street performances. You can see circus acts or buskers and so many more, all for free, all in the streets. These take place on the Royal Mile, Hunter Square and the Mound. And every Sunday there's a BSL interpreted street performance, which you can check out as well. Performances start at 10 a.m. However, it is best to stay towards the end of the day for the big and the loud acts. And these always finish at 5:15. Now on to the food and drink tips. Definitely bring a water bottle because you will save so much money. Most venues have a refill station, or if not, just ask the bar to fill up your bottle for you. You can constantly stay hydrated without spending any money. Food in Edinburgh during the Fringe is bound to be pricey, but a little secret is I wasn't very well when I went to Edinburgh, and this affected the kinds of food that I could and couldn't eat. So for me, it was easier and safer to eat in a restaurant, which costed about £15 to £20 per meal, which is one course for me. And coming from London, this is pretty normal to spend on a meal. However, if you're doing that every day, 5 days a week for lunch and dinner, it does add up. It does get quite pricey. But around every venue, there was a load of street food trucks, which was very good in my opinion. And that costed between £12 to £15 per person. So you can always get that. But if you're cautious about spending money on food at the Fringe, definitely take snacks to keep you going because, of course, it will be pricey. But it's safe to say Edinburgh has a load of different cuisines, all different types of food, so you will never short on something to enjoy. As promised, it is now time to talk about all the favourite shows that I saw. So I'm going to give you just three of my favourites. So Baby Lights Candy is definitely up there for me. This production doing improv where they ask the audience member for a spin-off of a musical and they perform an improv version of it. So for me, on the show that I went, an audience member shouted out, "Jesus Christ Uber Driver," which is a spin-off of Jesus Christ Superstar. So the entire performances are full improv of what they deemed to be the show, Jesus Christ Uber Driver. They were singing, it was laughter, it was really funny. I would definitely recommend that. The next show to recommend is called And Now for Something Completely Improvised. Another improv show. You see what I like here. This is where they get the audience member to pick out different photos from a book, different names, and then the act will make up a story of that, kind of in the vibe of a grandpa telling their grandkids a story from back in their day, and then they tell the story and it's just all improv, and I found that very funny as well. And the last show I'm going to recommend is called Two Truths and a Lie, which is where three comedians do their stand-up act, and it's a spin-off of the TV show Would I Lie to You? So at the end, they say either a truth or a lie, and the audience member can ask any question they like, and then they have to figure out which comedian is the liar, and just basically see which comedian is the better liar out of all of that. But it was so funny because in my show, we had a policewoman in the audience. One of the answers was against the law. Thank God that was a lie for them. But it was very funny because it was unexpected. And all these shows expect the unexpected. I hope this video has helped you plan your trip to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. As promised, I did this trip in under £1,300. So I'm going to put my price breakdown on the screen for you, but also be aware that flight prices may vary depending on when you're flying and where you're flying from, when you book the flights as well. But thank you for checking out this video. And if you're interested, please may support me in giving a like or even a subscribe. I can create similar content in the future for you. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great time at the festival.